See ya.
Right.
So,
We're told, I know what's going to happen to you now, mate.
Well, I know it's going to happen
We just
when you go to prison, obviously, again.
Why, what have you done? Have you done something to anyone else?
Yeah.
What have you done?
I've murdered 4 people.
This man, who violently killed 3 children and his partner with a hammer and raped one of his victims as she died, should have been stopped, a watchdog report has found. 33-year-old Damien Bendall was sentenced to a whole life prison term in December last year, meaning he'll die in jail. But it's since been found that the quadruple killer was known to police since 2003 and has been in and out of jail for violent crimes. A robbery in 2010 left his victim unconscious. In 2015, he brandished a knife during an attempted robbery. The following year, he attacked 3 prison officers, leaving one needing surgery and months of physical rehab. He was also reported for domestic abuse by a former partner.
Basically, I need the police and the ambulance and that because I've killed 4 people.
Okay, just hold the line. Bear with me.
In September 2021, police arrived at this house in Killamarsh, just hours after he'd carried out a brutal attack that left a mother and 3 children dead.
I'm arresting you on suspicion of murder. You don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence. Do not mention when questioned something later on in court.
The damning report concluded Bendall was able to carry out the killings after unqualified and overworked probation officers repeatedly failed to recognise the threat he posed. At the time of the attack, Bendall was categorised as low risk to partners and children by the probation service and released, something the Chief Inspector of Probation branded unacceptable.
The probation officer in court completely misrepresented the dangers that Damien Bendall presented, particularly to children. They failed to do any checks with the police about his risks or with children's social services.
Records show that in 2020, a child sexual exploitation team from Wiltshire Police flagged evidence to the probation service that Bendall was associated with a vulnerable 16-year-old girl. He was labelled a risk of serious sexual harm to girls. But the watchdog report says that this information was not explored or recorded sufficiently by the probation officer. Just before the killings in September 2021, Bendall was given a 24-month suspended sentence for arson and a 5-month curfew, confining him to the home he shared with his victims. The report found that there was no attempt to speak to Terry Harris to check that she consented to her home being used as his curfew address. 3 months later, he killed Harris, her 11-year-old daughter Lacey Bennett, Lacey's older brother John Paul Bennett, and Lacey's school friend Connie Gent. After he committed the quadruple murder, Bendall boasted to police that Terry's unborn baby was his 5th victim. The review found that Bendall was incorrectly assessed. He was in fact at a high risk of serious harm to the public and children. If correctly assessed, it would have meant that he was allocated to a more experienced probation officer and may not have been curfewed to the home that Harris shared with her children. The findings will not bring Bendall's victims back, nor will it provide solace to their families. But it has brought about 17 recommendations for probation service improvements, from child safeguarding checks to parental consent, and it's hoped that a tragedy of this scale will never happen again.